Welcome to Stock Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Ref, and I want startups to be wildly successful. Today, we're going to be talking about how best to categorize your business expenses, and I'm so happy to have Jana Groscost from Goddess Powered Business Solutions. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here and talk about one of my favorite subjects is really how to account for your business.
And it's so important to know exactly what your expenses are, where money is going out, and not just for tax purposes, but for your own strategic planning purposes, right?
Absolutely, because if you do not know what you're paying or what something is costing you to manufacture or create, or if you have a service, then it's hard to make adjustments to really maximize your profitability. We're not really in the business to create more expenses. We're in the business to make a profit. So we want to know where our money's going so that we can properly account for that.
Okay, so how should people approach categorizing their expenses?
That's a great question. So for most people that are, they have some sort of business, whether it's a service or some sort of product that they're creating, there's sort of two main categories of expenses. We have direct expenses, which would correlate specifically to, say, manufacturing a product. And I'll dive into exactly what we can kind of like categorize in that. And then we have indirect costs. And this can be things such as your building, your rent, your utilities, any administrative staff, any types of those things. But to me, the most important thing is really, first of all expenses are important. But I like to know when I'm creating something or manufacturing something, I want to know what it costs per unit to create that. So even when in accounting, we have this term called cost of goods sold, which everything can get lumped into that relates to getting that product out to market. However, when we can really break that down and identify key things, like what is it costing me for the raw materials? What is it costing me for labor that's specific to manufacturing that? What are my engineering salaries and their benefits and any bonuses that they get? We can also look at things like what are shipping costs, right? Because I went to the post office the other day and I was shocked. I usually send one of the flat rate mailers and it's usually $6.50. It was $10.50. I was like, wait, what? The cost went up? And so if all we're looking at is this clump of money, this clump of expenses, but we don't know what's comprising that, it's really hard for us to make decisions and to shift gears and say, you know what, we need to find a different shipping company, or we need to find a different supplier for this particular component. So when we can start to really break down the little tiny, I know it's really nerdy of me. I'm a numbers nerd, so whatever nerd element you embrace, it's sort of like you need to really dive into the details because that will help you understand where your costs are increasing and how you can actually manage those so that you can increase your profitability.
And knowing your costs is a great first step in being able to price appropriately. A lot of times people pull prices of products out of the air, and it's not a good way to do it, gang.
No, I call that the dartboard approach, where you're just sort of like, that looks like a good price. That looks like a good price. That looks like a good price. But you want to be strategic when you are pricing something, because not only do you want to make money on the product and cover all your actual operating or your direct expenses, but your indirect expenses, but you also want to allocate funds for research and development, because we see how quickly industries can change, and if we are not relevant, if we are not protecting ourselves, then our idea can be pulled out from underneath us. And if we don't have that legal protection, whether it's a copyright or a trademark or a patent, then all of a sudden our product is gone. And sure, we can try to fight it, but if it's a big company, you may not have the resources to actually go after them.
Okay. So is there particular software you like to use to be able to not just categorize things, but know where they are?
What do you mean by know where they are? Like
Well,
you spend
being able to generate reports that actually have some meaning.
absolutely. And you know what? That's one of the biggest challenges I think for business owners is even if they get a report, they don't know what they're looking at. And so I highly encourage people to become their best friends with in accounting. It's called the balance sheet and their income statement, because knowing what the components of those are going to help you understand your business. People are really good at their craft or their idea, their inspiration, but most of the time, and I've seen this as a tax accountant for 30 years, that they really lack the accounting and the business side of things. And so making sure that you have qualified professionals that are supporting you, but also you learning. What is that balance sheet telling me? What is that income statement telling me? Because when you know what that is, you can adapt your business to accommodate what's going on. As far as software, I've been a QuickBooks user forever. It has, very robust reporting in it. It's got great ways of categorizing things. There are limitations, especially if you are trying to split, say, like salaries and stuff. At least this was when I did, when I used to have payroll for people. It had to be one or the other. It had to be either in direct costs or it had to be an indirect costs. And that to me was frustrating because, administration does not fall under direct costs, right? So that was one of the downfalls that I found with QuickBooks. I know there are other accounting softwares out there. I've just found it to be the most user-friendly as well as the most robust as far as reporting.
So let's talk some more about business expenses and categorizing them. What kinds of things do you want people to really know?
So people may think, oh, I can't really hire an attorney to support me with the intellectual property of my business. And yet it's absolutely vital because, the internet has so much information and you'll start advertising your product. And if it isn't protected in some capacity, somebody could take it and all of a sudden, your product is no longer relevant or it no longer becomes yours. So making sure that you've got a great legal team that supports you with that will be very beneficial. Having key components, as I said before, having either a bookkeeper or some sort of accountant or accounting staff that helps you in knowing what the patterns are in your business, right? Because our business may be cyclical. It may be, based on a certain time of the year that it's more relevant than other times of the year. And knowing this is important because, if you're only relevant for 3 months out of the year, say during the holiday season, you need to bank all that money and not say, okay, big bonuses at the end of the year. Let's party, right? Because now you've got 9 months that you've got to prep and save or prepare for the rest of the year. So you want to make sure that you're spending your money wisely and not just spending money because your bank account says you've got X amount of dollars, right? Because you may have, let's say, insurance often comes up once a year, or sometimes it's twice a year, depending on the type of insurance it is. So if you haven't allocated the funds for that, then all of a sudden you may go into crisis mode thinking, how are we going to pay for this? Or maybe there's specific licenses that come up for your product or your service, and they may be an annual thing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I've got a $10,000 fee for this. Where am I coming up with the money? So it's really about looking at the overarching picture of how much does my business cost in a year, and then breaking it down by month. Okay, we need this month much to really cover that. And if there's lean months, then you need to make sure that you're really saving to prepare for those months that things may not be as productive as the other times.
So when you know where your money is and you know where it goes, you're in a better position to budget and you're in a better position to not fail. Well, thank you so much, Jana Groscost from Goddess Powered Business Solutions. We'll put your contact information into the comments so people can get a hold of you. And
Thanks,
I'm
Mary.
Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. And one of the best things you can do to accomplish that is book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com. And join us again next time for Stuck, Time to Improv.